Hello, my name's Ryan Fgrave, and I'm the host of Community Tools World Podcast. I'm joined with Nickolaj Andersen, who's a SCCM MVP and the author of many tools for SCCM. He's a consultant with Lumigate. He's been there about 3 years. So hi, Nickolaj.
Hi, Ryan.
Hey,
Thanks for having me.
no problem. So just wanted to go a little bit into your background. How did you get into technology?
I think it all started back when I was about 7 or 8 years old when I got my first computer and started writing web pages. And I think I went to a course for Front Page 2000 or something back in the days. Um, Not what I'm doing today, basically, but I think it got me started into the area what I'm working with now. I mean, enterprise mobility and all those things.
Did you have an
At
old
least got me triggered with.
GeoCities page or?
Can't remember. I mean, I think I was really intrigued by I was able to create a link from one page to another page, and for me back at that day, I mean, it was quite interesting
Okay.
from my point of view at least.
hmm So, after you started working on web pages, where'd you go from there?
Actually, I had a couple of years when I did some DVD authoring for a company. I think if you buy well, who buys DVD anyways now, right? But I think I did a couple of those for National Geographic, some nature stuff, where I just authored the menus and kind of like encoded the material from the original source, stuff like that. Um, but I mean, from the purpose of what I'm doing right now, I mean, I started working at a company called Trioptima a couple of years ago. I think it's like 5 or 6 years now, where I got the opportunity to work as a, what do you call it? Desktop technician or something, or
Yeah.
system administrator or something.
hmm
And my experience in that area was quite limited. I have had almost certain similar jobs before, but everything really took off at the company called Trioptima, where they were using Linux a lot, and they didn't have an Active Directory. They didn't have ConfigMgr for managing the clients. They basically didn't have anything in terms of client management. So we started building everything that we call Platform 2.0. We launched it, I don't know, half a year later when I went worldwide, deployed Windows 7 with ConfigMgr. And from there, my interest really took off, and I started digging deeper into the product and into the area itself. And yeah, that's where I am now.
So,
Look where it got me. Now I'm an MVP.
yeah. So if you kind of started even as a kid doing coding, have you always been kind of making tools through your own jobs and still coding, or is that something you picked back up recently?
It's something that I picked up quite recently. I mean, when the first real tool that I ever made was the Prerequisite tool. And I believe that when I wrote the documentation for the new release that just came out this week, I think the first one that I ever made was back in 2013, December-ish, something like that. So I mean, I've been updating that tool for like 3 years now. It feels like a decade or something.
Yeah.
But that's around the same period of time when I started looking into PowerShell or something like that. I mean, I had previous experience with batch scripting and stuff, but that's not really something I'm proud of.
Okay, so so the first tool you kind of made was the prereq tool. Why did you make it? Did you make it to kind of for yourself first and then the community, or?
I mean, at that time in my life, I wasn't really that involved in any kind of community, to say, service, or I didn't have any community engagement at all. But from my intention with the tool was for myself to make it easy, because I rebuilt my lab environment quite a few times. And we also needed to reinstall ConfigMgr at one point because we had an issue with a computer dev update that, seriously broke everything. So Microsoft support didn't solve the problem, so we rebuilt everything from scratch. And at that point, I've started looking into PowerShell just on a very simple basis. And I thought to myself, maybe I can do this faster, or maybe I don't have to do this another time in the future or something like that. So from the start, I did it for my own, but then I realized this is something that other people can also take advantage of. So I decided to share it, and I started blogging around the same time. I think it's a lot of years now since it happened.
Yeah. So you're a big contributor to the community. Do you go to a lot of like the user group meetings and stuff like that there, or?
Yeah, I've been visiting a couple of user groups events here in Sweden for the past years. I've also had the pleasure to speak for the WMUG user group in the UK, which I've actually visited 2 times. Rob is a good friend of mine, and some other lads over there. So, I would say I'm a pretty frequent visitor to these groups. I mean, well, whenever there's one in Sweden, obviously I attempt to attend it if I have the opportunity. But I mean, I work a lot, so. But if there's an opportunity, I would, of course, I would like to be there and speak if that's possible.
And are your user groups just a tiny bit off topic? I know like the WMUG user group is kind of a all-day event. Are those in Sweden also all-day events, or just kind of afternoon?
No, actually, the whole schedule for the user groups here in Sweden, at least the System Center user group, they started off as like I think it was a couple of events with a couple of hours, but recently they have turned into 1 or 2 days events where we usually Stefan Schörling has arranged that the group meeting could be on Microsoft premise outside Stockholm. So we have the opportunity to lend their conference rooms and stuff like that. So I mean, it's pretty big. I mean, generally there are around 50 to 100 people attending every time. So I mean, that's good. It's really good.
Oh yeah. Okay, so wanted to get a bit into the tools. You had said that the first tool you made is the prereq installer, and you've got that nice UI with it. It's in PowerShell and WPF, right?
Yeah, the previous version were with I built those with Windows Forms. But I mean, I'm a perfectionist. I would at least think that I am. And I didn't like that whenever for instance, you click on the install button to do some kind of function in the backend that triggered off a time-consuming task. I mean, I didn't really like the experience that the tool presented, that the whole UI itself actually froze. So I decided to this new version 2.0 it's built on PowerShell, of course, but it leverages SAML and WPF. And actually multi-threading, I forgot to say that, which is pretty cool.
What tools do you use to kind of like design the UI? Are you using Visual Studio or just straight typing it out?
Yeah, well, with the latest tool, I've actually used Visual Studio because it's a lot easier, it's a lot faster. But you probably won't believe me when I say this, but for all the previous tools I made in Windows Forms, I've actually just typed everything out. I tried using the Sapien tools, but I found it easier just to do everything myself. And the more tools you made, that I made, the more just copy and paste you could do between the tools with the code. Because creating the controls are quite static unless you need to add some property to them or something that different.
Mm-hmm. And do you use just the PowerShell ISE kind of when you code, or do you use like a Sapien tool, or?
No, I'm a plain ISE lover. If you could say it like that. Yeah, I've tried the IC steroids for instance, and I think that's a great add-on. But I've been using, of course, I have my own theme for IC, but that's practically it. I'm not that very. I wouldn't call myself a heavy user of PowerShell. I think that's probably wrong to say, but I use the basic tools that come out of the box with Windows.
Okay. So yeah, did you want to show your prereq installer, or?
Yeah, sure. We can take a look at that.
Yeah, let's take a look.
Definitely.
At that. All right. Yeah, I can see it now.
Okay, awesome. Perfect. So basically, with this new tool, as you can see, there are a couple of new files. Previously, you just had everything in a basic PowerShell PS1 file that you would simply just open up by invoking it from a PowerShell console. If you build a script in or a tool in PowerShell with WPF and leveraging the multi-threading, or actually multiple run spaces, you would need to open the PowerShell console with a specific parameter called STA. And it doesn't do that if you just right-click and launch it to the console like this. Even though if you would run some command to check if it's in STA mode or not, it would say STA, but unfortunately it's not. It's some kind of bug. So what I decided was that I would create some kind of wrapper to simply just allow the user to double-click the exe file and have the tool launched. And that's about it. It doesn't do that much. It launches the file. It checks if it's running on a Windows Server member server, and if the Windows Server version is greater than 2000. In addition to that, it also just checks if there's any pending reboot or something, and then it displays everything in the command console that's launched. I also think that this is, at least I hope that this is it's a nicer experience, right? Mm-hmm. It's easier to launch. Although I've already seen comments on the blog and on the TechNet gallery that people are not using the exe file. They are still trying to invoke the script. And the problem with that is if you just launch the script, it would seem that at least it would appear like the script is working, because this window will launch, and in the background there's another process running all the function that are invoked. For instance, if I click install here, the thing is that if you don't launch the tool through the wrapper, the UI won't, or the GUI actually won't send any instructions, and it won't update itself. So you would really have to use the wrapper for actually for using this version. And in terms of site configuration, nothing much has really changed there. It looks different. Something that I'm really intrigued about, that I really had to wrap my head around to get it working, was that a lot of people requested me to be able to install different site roles, actually site system roles on remote systems, and to do it in a batch job, basically. So what I did was that I added the opportunity to select remote server, and what you could do here is like just type in server 1, server 2, server 3, or something like that. You also have the opportunity to give the add alternative credentials to the actual PowerShell session that's going to be established. So if you're running the tool on the server in your own user context or something like that, what you could do is you could, for instance, if you know that you're running this for some kind of other servers where your, regular user account doesn't have any rights, you could just specify something else. I don't think it's something that's going to be used very much, but I decided to add it since there would probably be some situation where people would need to use that. I think that I could do something like this actually just to show it how it looks. I hope it's going to work. So something else that's new is that, I mean, the tool actually, I mean, I tried to work on what's actually being outputted. So there's a lot more information being outputted in the log information. I mean, what the tool is actually doing. And for instance, as you can see, there's a nice progress bar. It's saying that it's installing the feature. You can see the computer name it's actually installing on, and stuff like that. So I hope this is some really cool new stuff that people out there will be happy to use.
Yeah, definitely. So with this, this just installs the prerequisites, right? It doesn't actually install the role, or does it install the role too?
No, this is just for the prerequisites. And then you would have to install the role through the ConfigMgr console or PowerShell.
What's the Active Directory tab I see there? Is that...
Yeah, that's for extending the schema.
Okay.
Where you would have to browse for the installation media, of course. Mm-hmm. And if you just notice that actually the tool is doing some work in the background, right? Mm-hmm. But the GUI itself is responsive and can be updated, right? So I can just browse around. In the older version, whenever I just hit install, everything would just freeze and you couldn't basically do anything.
Yeah.
But as for the Active Directory, I also added some. I kind of gave the UI portion a whole refresh, basically, where I mean, in the older version, you had to click on a button to get another form opened up where you'd have to search for the AD group and stuff like that. And then whenever you selected an AD group, you would just close the form, and it would, in the other form, or well, the original form, it would give you some sort of output that, yeah, it worked or didn't work. So I decided to just embed everything in one single form and try to add the AD group search for in the same place as everything else. Right now, that's probably not working while we're doing other stuff, but well, I mean, this is 2.0.0. There are probably some kind of bugs, but yeah, this seems to be a bug. But it would actually make sense because the other thread right now is busy doing these things, so it wouldn't be responsive. But at least you can look around in the tool to see what else is possible.
Right. What about the ADK piece? Is that...
It hasn't really been updated in terms of functionality, but there's a new look. And of course, you have the opportunity to select which version of ADK you would like to install. You could also do an offline install in those situations where you would just browse to where you downloaded and placed the redistributable files. And then just hit install, and it would. Oh yeah, actually, there's some new kind of functionality. This time around, it waits for the ADK setup.exe process to finish before it logs that it completed the action.
Okay. For the online media, do you have to actually download the installer, or does it automatically get that for you?
Yeah, I made a small switch statement in the code where, unfortunately, I would have to manually update the code every time there's a new ADK. But it downloads the ADK file. I think I'm placing it in Windows temp, if I'm not mistaken. Oh yeah, basically something that the wrapper tool actually does as well. It launches the processes in an elevator mode, so you don't have to take care of that. If you would, for some reason, manage to launch the script in a non-elevated state and start to install some, I don't know, Windows features, for instance, you would get really interesting results. It would actually start complaining about the server manager commandlets are not loaded or something like that, because you would need to have the process elevated for that. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So I added that elevation into the wrapper as well.
Okay, and then I'm assuming WSUS just lets you install WSUS with.
Yeah, I mean exactly. You can do the WID, or you can do the SQL, and you would have to specify where to store the WSUS content, and basically install the features. And depending on what kind of selection you made, it runs the post install and configures that properly. So yeah, that's basically it. I mean, this is the new version. Pretty intrigued about it, actually. I mean, I think it's a step in the right direction. I probably have to fix a few bugs whenever they're discovered, but I mean, this is fun.
Any command line options where you could maybe install without launching the UI through a script?
No, it doesn't. I've had those requests as well, and I've been thinking about doing it, but maybe it would be easier to do with this new source code, but back in the older version, that code didn't allow for that, basically. I mean, I would have to rewrite everything. And in terms of code, I'm actually really glad that I rewrote everything, because the code that I made for the first tool kind of like followed along from the first version, got a little bit updated in the second, and then in the third, I added some new functionality. And when I made the 2.0 version, that I realized that, Jesus, I sucked at PowerShell that once. But I mean, it's interesting to go back and look at code you wrote a couple of years ago and then compare it to how you would do it today. I mean, it's an interesting journey that you see for yourself that you have made over the years.
Yeah, I always hate to go back and look at my old blog posts with old PowerShell code from 2 years ago.
Yeah, I should probably start removing some old posts from my blog as well, just not to embarrass myself.
So when you redid the UI, you rewrote kind of like the tool from scratch, basically?
Yeah, since I decided to give it a try to make everything more responsive in the UI, I read a few blog posts from what is his name? I can never remember that. I think it's like yeah, exactly, Bo Prox. I mean, he made a few posts on how to use WPF and stuff like that, and I read those, and I actually started playing with it, and I came up with a pretty good template how to make the multiple run spaces approach with the WPF and PowerShell. And I was thinking about just releasing that template whenever I have the time to put it up on my blog, because I couldn't really find anything that really suited my purpose that I wanted to do with the tool. So I had to come up with something myself, based upon whatever the P Boaks. Sorry, I can't remember that name. With those approaches that he had with with the ticker, running some certain script block like 4 times every second. But I had to really modify that to only run certain parts of the UI. For instance, every time it runs, it checks if the selected tab, for instance, WSUS, is selected. If that's true, it runs through another sets of if queries, if statements, to check, for instance, so should I update the text box or something like that. So because I didn't want to put too much load on the server, and didn't want the whole tool to just drain the memory. Because I think it's like 1,500 rows of code or something like that. I mean, and if I'm not mistaken, I think like 500 of those are the UI update part. Could be less, I can't remember exactly, but something like that. I mean, there's a lot of UI updating code in this one. So yeah, that's about it, I think, about this tool. Unless you have any other questions about it.
No, I think I'm good with that. And then I also heard you're making a web service now.
Yeah, since I started, I wrote this ConfigMgr Prerequisites Tool wrapper in C#, and I'm really lousy at C#. I must say that, but I mean, I'm trying to learn it just to come up with a couple of ideas to get me started. And the other day I had to at a customer I visited, I had to get the primary user information in during the OST scenario to just to process that and embed that in another script, and instead of putting in some username and password connecting to the ConfigMgr SMS provider, I mean, I decided to look up the what's his name, Mike Coster, right? He has a really good web service, and unfortunately that web service didn't have anything for the primary user data. So I decided just to give it a try to see if I could create one myself, and I did. It's not really that advanced. I mean, I think it's like 30 or 40 rows of code, but so what I came up with, I couldn't really come up with a good name for it, so I just wrote Web Config Manager to get started to see if we could get it to work. So basically what it does is that there's a simple method, get primary user by device. So if I just run this code, and if I put in a device name, for instance, I get the user data, primary user data back. Probably not that useful to many, but I mean, I think this is my new project that I will take on in my spare time to start learning some more C# and perhaps evolve this web service a bit to kind of like make it an extension to what Mike did a couple of years ago, so that people have more functionality through the web service, or actually through a web service option. To do that through OSD, because I really think that's a really good way to get data from ConfigMgr in a secure way.
Yeah. For the web service, you said it only took like 60 lines of code, so they're pretty easy to make.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I can.
The screen went black.
Yeah, I know. I just need to switch. I can present another program instead. I should probably not show you the code, but I'm doing it anyway. Then people can laugh how ugly it looks like. I'm probably doing a lot of newbie faults, but it does whatever I want it to do, basically. So what there are two app settings, site server and site code that you specify in the web.config file, and the code just collects those. And then it just queries to the SMS provider from a certain query here with the device name, and then it basically just based if the query is not equal to null, it goes through all the objects found, and then it just basically returns the username as a string, and that's what you were able to see. So please don't laugh, but I mean, this is me like 4 years ago when I started working with PowerShell, and hopefully in 4 years from now I will look at this podcast and just laugh at myself, basically. Cool.
Yeah.
What do you think? Would it be useful?
Yeah, I think that'll definitely be useful. So yeah, with that, is that going to be something that's up on your blog?
Not currently, because I really want to just add a few more methods to the web service before I actually release it, and probably learn a little bit more so I feel a little bit more comfortable to actually write about the things that I do. So
yeah, and would you be also giving instructions on how to create it?
I would probably give some sort of instruction how to install it, not create not create the web service. I'm not writing it. Well, I haven't decided, but that's not the type of stuff that I usually share. How to create stuff. I mean, it's more like how do you. Well, I do certain how-tos, but I mean, recently it's been a lot of scripting stuff that I've shared, just because it's something that I'm really really passionate about.
Okay. And yeah, speaking of your blog, so you've got a lot of stuff on there. I just wanted to ask one question because I had a interesting answer from Rob Marshall with your icon. It's kind of an odd icon I haven't seen before. Where did that come from? The kind of like almost like a pyramid shape.
Yeah, I think I should probably say I think I stole it from one of my colleagues, if I'm not mistaken. One of my colleagues called Daniel Clausen. I think he had it on his blog or has it on his blog, and this is probably like 3 years ago or something like that I updated that small icon. I really can't remember, but I think I also at that time searched for ConfigMgr icon or something like that, and found some kind of tool to just take a JPEG and convert it into an icon. And I can't really recall exactly. I think Daniel really has this one. I tried forth and back with different icons, but I wasn't happy with those that I came up with. So I think this is from his blog, unfortunately.
Okay. And then yeah, so I know we didn't talk about this ahead of time, so you don't necessarily need to show it if you don't have it. But also, you had that create software update group tool.
Yeah,
it's a console extension you created.
it is. I haven't installed it in my lab environment right now. I could probably do that pretty quick,
Okay.
because I unfortunately had to rebuild everything, because one of my lab servers on the dedup of the volume completely corrupted everything and all my VMs on it, so I had to rebuild everything, which wasn't fun at all.
I recently had to rebuild my SCCM environment because I accidentally reverted the wrong server to a previous snapshot.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not fun.
Yeah. And is this also one that does the updating clean software update?
No, that's a different console extension.
You do a lot with software updates, it seems.
Yeah, because I think the Microsoft in some areas in for this project they lack some functionality that everyone really needs. I mean, it's really great that we now have the run wsus cleanup wizard built in, but I mean,
yeah.
As I said earlier, I'm a perfectionist. I really want those software update groups to be cleaned every time. Well, I do software update scan or something like that, or synchronization. I mean, awesome. So basically, what you do is that you simply just run invoke tool installation, specify the site server, method, and where to store the script, and it will extend your console with the script provided. And you do have to relaunch the console, of course. When you have done that, you'll get a new item in the menu here, which actually launches the tool. Actually, the reason for why I created this was that I had a couple of similar projects at different customers over a period of time, and where we did a lot of software updates. Basically from scratch, where I figured, I mean, doing these saved searched and creating all these software update groups to go a couple of years back to cover everything. I mean, it was a time-consuming task that I really didn't want to do every time. So I decided to make something that I could just, with a few easy clicks, create a bunch of similar software update groups with a few criteria that differ, maybe the date, or I don't know, some kind of different classifications or something like that.
Right.
This is basically what it does. For instance, I mean, if you put in, I don't know, Windows Server 2012 R2, and you want everything from, I don't know, up until recently or something like that, a couple of months. Then you just select the proper Windows product. Where is it? There we go. Click Add, Critical Updates, and click Create. Unfortunately, this is Windows Forms, so it freezes. But what it should do is should come up with a pop-up like this saying, successfully added one software update. I think I need to sync.
That sounds about right. Windows Server only has one critical update.
Yeah, nah, I don't think so, right? Oops, sorry. So if I would, for instance, go to the next month or something like that, right, I could just skip through the different months here or something like that. I'll just pick the specific dates if I wanted to. And if I also want to add, I don't know, definition updates, I can just do it like that and hit create again. And then I can do this on a, I don't know, yearly basis or monthly basis or something like that. Depends on however I want to configure everything.
So what does this do if the software update group already exists? Does it add to the old one, or?
It actually creates a new one, which is pretty interesting. So you can have multiple software update groups with the same name.
I did not know that.
If I'm not mistaken, now that I think about it, I would have to check that. I mean, I think I ran through those tests when I created the tool. We could try it out like this. Ah, yeah.
Oh.
You know what? I did that test and I came up with the solution. You can't have two. It seems.
Very nice.
So yeah, that's a tool. I think I presented that at the Swedish System Center user group meeting here back in May or something. And also had the opportunity to show it in UK when I was there in July. Just a couple of days after I received my MVP title. So that was really cool.
Nice.
I'm not really sure if people are using this. I know that a lot of people have downloaded the cleanup software update group cleanup tool, but I haven't really checked recently if people are using this. But hey, people, if you're not using this, please do. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, for me, it gives me, it saves time, and at least since I'm a consultant and I tend to do the same tasks, not only once but twice. So if I can have a tool to just speed everything up, I would certainly create one. And,
I've noticed a lot of people who make tools are kind of consultants and do that profession.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, if we can save time with custom-made tools, I mean, I would definitely use those.
All right, so that was very nice. I think that we're kind of running out of time. So, what are you having any speaking engagements coming up or anything like that?
Yeah, I think I'm speaking at the System Center user group here in Sweden somewhere in the end of October. I think it's like 25th or 27th, something like that. So if you have the opportunity to come over to Sweden, Ryan, just let me know.
We'll definitely let you know.
Awesome.
My wife would love to go, so.
Well, bring her.
Yeah.
You should probably bring your coat as well, because it's going to be really freezing at that time.
All right. So, thank you for being on the podcast, Nickolaj.
Thank you very much.
This was Community Tools Rule. Join us next month. I actually don't know right now who's speaking next month yet, so we'll figure that out. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
All right. You too.